it could be the early days of World War III. The United States ruled over Iran from 1953 to 1979. Donald Trump is unfortunately very dangerously psychologically unstable individual. Don't ever talk to the other side, just kill them is actually a kind of Netanyahu philosophy. For some people in the United States, as things get darker, they say, oh, that's good. That means the second coming of Christ is coming closer. The world does not want to be ruled by the United States and Israel. The CIA is the main determinant of long-term U.S. foreign policy. Netanyahu is both a corrupt, incompetent, and messianic self-appointed figure. What Israel demands is compliance. And if it doesn't get compliance, it wants overthrow of the government. I have a simple rule of thumb. If you have U.S. military bases in your country, you become a vassal state of the United States. It's very hard to rise in Europe as an anti-American politician. Nobody cares about Iran in the United States or Europe. To tell the United States, go home, that's a real affront to the empire. The United States is getting its revenge for 1979. The difference with John is that I believe cooperation is possible. I think the wars that the U.S. is fighting are reducing our chances of survival.
First of all, thank you so much for your time, sir. You just made it, and I'm very glad that I could talk with you. Thank you so much for this, sir. I would not like to dishonor myself by introducing you because you are known, you are respected and highly valued. I think in this critical time, you are considered the epitome of sanity. So I would like directly to start with my question. How is your assessment of this conflict? How this holy war started by Emperor Trump and Bibi Netanyahu is going right now?
Well, it's creating a disaster for the whole world. And it could be the early days of World War III. This is a war of conquest and mayhem caused by Israel and the United States. The U.S., especially under Trump, but I would say in general, has aspirations of global hegemony. Israel definitely has aspirations of regional hegemony over the Middle East and West Asia. And this is a war of conquest by both of them together. It's extremely dangerous. The world does not want to be ruled by the United States and Israel, but that is what they are absolutely trying to impose.
Yeah, so you just pinpointed to three very important things, and I think there is still like a debate in media which says that there is no end point to this war. The aims are not clear, but as you just said, the aims seem to be very clear. It is U.S. hegemony and making Israel a regional power. So I think it needs to be settled.
Yes, I don't think there's any doubt about this. If we listen to Trump, there's no doubt he gets to decide everything. He gets to choose who rules Iran. He gets to decide who rules the countries of the Americas. He's a megalomaniac in a clinical psychological sense. I think Netanyahu is as well. They are both infused with the messianic self-belief, and they're both very dangerous, especially as they are close partners in this.
Quite often, like you just talked about Trump. So what is unfolding right now in Iran, is it simply because of Trump psychology, like the kind of person he is, or is it the commitment of the deep state you were once debating with John Mearsheimer, and the ideological commitments of that deep state?
It's, of course, both. Our U.S. system is very much a deep state system. The CIA is the main determinant of long-term U.S. foreign policy. And it is both a secret army, but as well as the foreign policy lead. There are others as well, of course, the Pentagon and other parts of the U.S. government. But essentially, there's a long-term strategy. The long-term strategy for the United States is global dominance. This is sometimes called the grand strategy. It's sometimes called primacy. It's sometimes called full spectrum dominance. But the basic idea underpinning all of it is that the United States should have the power to determine events and choose who is in government in any place in the world. Then there is the individual personalities who are the public face of this machine. They play a role also to some extent. They don't determine the direction of the machine, but they determine the timing, the pace, the specific choices. Donald Trump is unfortunately a very dangerously psychologically unstable individual. He's also an old man. People say that he's become more unstable and unhinged. Many people have specific clinical theories. I don't, because I'm not a practicing psychologist or clinician or geriatrician. But this is a very dangerous person on top of very dangerous machine. In Israel, the situation is also partly deep state ideology. Mossad is surely the most important uh, agency of Israel. In general, I would say the world is run by the security services more than anybody else. This is true in every part of the world, with just a few exceptions. But in any event, Mossad has a deep strategy, and the strategy is to overthrow governments in the Middle East that support the Palestinian cause or that oppose Greater Israel. Netanyahu is both a corrupt, incompetent, and messianic self-appointed figure to create the Greater Israel. He's like Trump. He is an unstable, uh, not very smart, but absolutely a megalomaniacal figure that drives or that sits on top of this long-term machine. So we have very violent two societies led by two people without self-control and with the grand delusions, and perhaps they've launched World War III.
Yeah. So, like as I said, I am from Pakistan. We quite often complain here in Pakistan that we are run by an establishment, which refers to primarily military establishment, and then we say that those wars and those things that the military establishment does, they are justified in the name of religion. Now, when I was listening to you and what I see in this war, the situation of US is not different. I was seeing Trump sitting in his office and he is like sanctifying with prayers, and people are praying for him for his health. These wars are also getting justified in the name of religion, that it's like a sort of the end time. And as you said, like these societies are also run by those tiny establishments, primarily security establishments.
Yes, these are, first of all, cults. So there is a kind of cult aspect to this. They are indeed in the US and Israel um, within this group messianic cults that are very extremist. They provide some of the energy to this, but they're not necessarily the drivers of the wars themselves. They don't sit in the war machine usually. Those are professional killers rather than these people. But in the United States, the Christian, Protestant, evangelical, uh, Armageddon driven group is about 20% of the American population and up to 40% of Trump's own base. So it's by no means a majority. It's a distinct minority, but it is a powerful part of the political base. It's the people in the rallies that are
Yes.
screaming and shouting for Trump, that are cheering on his megalomania. And they are people like the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, who said a couple of weeks ago now that according to the Bible, Israel has the right to all the land between the Nile and the Euphrates River. And when he was asked about that, he's the ambassador after all, so this is not an informal position. He was said,
Yes.
yes, Israel can go take what it wants. So that's evangelical Protestantism of a particular kind in the United States. It's got a very interesting heritage. It goes back to the 19th century. It's based on the end of times belief and the belief in Armageddon. And so this is very dangerous because for some people in the United States, as things get darker, they say, oh, that's good. That means the second coming of Christ is coming closer. This is
Mm.
not a small matter. This is a very, very, very strange and dangerous point. And Trump, because he's personally delusional, plays into this. He said himself that he believes he's on God's mission right now, and he has a lot of people around him telling him these things. And so when he says that he'll pick the next supreme leader of Iran, he's not making a joke or uh, expressing some flippant idea or trying to provoke. He is explaining his delusional state of mind right now.
Yeah.
Then in Israel, you also have a mix. Some of Israel is basically very violent, hardline believers in extremist nationalism, and they take their cue, sad to say, from the disaster that befell the Jewish people in Europe under Hitler, the Holocaust. And they say that their mission is never again, so they'll kill anyone first that threatens them. And that kind of idea, don't ever talk to the other side, just kill them, is actually a kind of Netanyahu philosophy. But he's
Yeah.
aligned also with the religious extremists who read the Jewish Bible and some of these books from around 2,500 years ago talk about the conquests of the land at the time in genocidal terms. They say that God commanded the people of Israel to uproot the local populations and to destroy them, to kill everybody. And it's even the command of God in these books, like the book of Joshua. There are people who take this very literally, and their mindset is that they are in the 5th century BC, and they operate accordingly. So you put these two together, you have quite a mix right now of
Yes.
a lot of will to kill. And that is the tenor right now as Iran is picking its new supreme leader after Ali Khamenei having been assassinated by Israel, the Israeli government is announcing that they'll kill the next leader and the next
Yes.
leader. So it's a self-appointed murder machine. This is the state of the world right now. The pathetic state of the world is that much of Europe signs on to this because this is also, for some people, at least, even though Europe is very secular, for some people it is still the Holy War. It's still the Crusades. It's many ideas and confusions. And part of it, of course, is simply to go along with the United States, which is the master empire in all of this.
Yeah. Yeah, so you just pinpoint once again to these important questions and like the religious rhetoric which is playing into this war. I was talking with an Iranian professor who said that this war will not stop with Iran, and I think the Neftali Bennett, these people have also made this claim. So let's say if Iran falls, will Israel or US just stop with Iran, or like they will go for some other countries? Let's say, for example, Turkey and Pakistan. The professor I mentioned, he was talking that they will not stop with Iran, and Israel will then go after these Muslim countries as well. So, do you buy into this argument, or it's just simply an alarmist point?
Well, I buy into the argument that Israel's view is that every government in the region must be compliant with Israel. And if not, then it's an enemy. And if it's an enemy, it's a target. And if it's a target, it means that the United States should go to war with it. So, in this sense, what Israel demands is compliance. And if it doesn't get compliance, it wants overthrow of the government. So, you could say every government will be given a choice. Either you comply with our demands or we will uh, overthrow you. That is the Israel US position.
Yeah. You made a point in your, as we started this conversation, that the world does not want to live under US hegemony in Israel's, but you talked, for example, now about Europe, and you will also have noticed the role of Gulf states. Don't you think that it's quite clear that they actually do want to live under US hegemony and also under Israel's regional hegemony when you look at the role of the Gulf states, for example?
I don't think they want this, but I think that to a certain extent, the United States has succeeded in bringing them to this vassal state. Basically, I have a simple rule of thumb. If you have U.S. military bases in your country, you become a vassal state of the United States. The military is there to hold you down more than it is to protect you. Once there are military bases, you have no freedom of maneuver. It means you also host the CIA, you host the possibility of local subversion.
Yes.
And there are about 80 countries in the world with US military bases, including the Gulf countries. These countries are not really sovereign. Europe is not really sovereign. These are part of the US empire. Are they happy to be? I don't think so. The public are not happy with any of this.
Yes.
Are the elites? Well, when it comes to the elites, the US has put many of these people directly in power. When it comes to the European elites, many of them have been groomed by the United States for 10 or 20 or 30 years, being part of fellowships and joining commissions and being promoted and being invited to Davos and being invited to the Atlantic Council and giving speeches in the United States and visiting American universities. So they're promoted uh, socially and politically, step by step. A young politician that steps out of line is pretty much already banished. It's very hard to rise in Europe as an anti American politician. So, this is a system of recreation each political generation. Do people want this? No. Uh, do some people think that this is protection? Well, one of the U.S. ways of ruling is the ancient way of empire, divide and conquer. So the United States stoked the conflict with Iran for decades so that they would tell the Gulf countries, we will protect you.
Yes.
Turns out not to be such great protection, by the way. And
Yes.
in Europe, they tell the European countries, we'll protect you against the Russians. But that really means we will dominate you. The Russians are not going to invade Europe. This is all a myth. But it's a convenient myth for the United States. It's part of divide and conquer.
Yeah. So I see there is like a lot of fixation on Iran. For example, when there was the conversations about Greenland, there was quite often the mention of imperialism as well, that Trump has become imperialist and blah 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 because he wants to conquer Greenland. But now in Iran, for example, when like literally a leader of a country has been killed, there are not any substitute conversations about imperialism or these sorts of thing, but there is still that fixation on Iran, that Iran is like a country which oppresses women and blah blah blah. So this fixation on Iran, is it because simply that the people care so much about Iran that it is ruled by these religious establishment, by these clerics who oppresses women? Is this fixation simply about this, as we are told?
Nobody cares about Iran in the United States or Europe except what they're told to care about. And so, of course, there's a lot of propaganda and a lot of manipulation. But the question is, why is this manipulation happening? And the
Mhm.
answer, of course, is that Iran alone in Western Asia resisted the United States. And it resisted the United States because the United States ruled over Iran from 1953 to 1979. We have to remember the history of Iran. Iran, of course, is a great civilization that dates back 5,000 years, and it's played an enormous role in the world. But in the Western imagination, first of all, Persia was a threat to the West. The first history book in
Mhm. Yes.
in the West, the first history book is Herodotus,
Yes.
called the Histories, but it's the history of the war between the Greeks and the Persians. And so this is a lasting imagination, the great East-West divide. So it's easy to stoke. Then the next great historical memory of the West is the Crusades. This is the battle of Christianity and Islam. And this is a very deep part of Western culture. Then comes the modern period when uh, Iran, maybe to its misfortune, and the whole Middle East found that they had oil.
Yes.
Because then, as soon as they found they had oil, they became the property of the British Empire. Because Britain, remember, is as bad or worse than the United States in
Yes.
its mental constructs. The British Empire is even longer than the U.S. empire. It's even more violent, although it's not
Yes.
powerful anymore. But in any event, Britain had the very bright idea to entice the United States, also the CIA, in 1953 to overthrow the Iranian government
Yeah.
because Iran was daring to say that the oil belonged to them. And they installed the Shah of Iran. This was a police state that lasted for more than 2 decades. And eventually there was a revolution against the police state as the Shah was ailing and dying of cancer. And this is the history. Now, to tell the United States, go home, that's a real affront to the empire. And then students held American hostages for more than a year, and that was a trauma for the American psyche. Because when you're the empire, these insults need to be punished.
Hmm.
We know this throughout history. If you insult the empire, then there has to be a massive bloodletting afterwards. This, in part, is what's happening right now. The United States is getting its revenge for 1979. It's getting its revenge for Iran daring to overthrow the empire. So this is part of what's happening. Of course, there are practical considerations for the CIA right now, which is that they want to control the Middle East oil. So that's a very practical consideration. There are practical considerations for Israel, that they want regional military hegemony. So it's a mix of uh, mindset and current practicalities as seen by the security state that are at play here. But the hatred is stoked both by vague historical memories and by more recent historical events.
You mentioned the religious point of view, like Christianity versus Islam. I think these wars also make us to unlearn quite a lot of things. As I said, like I am from Pakistan, and we used to think that there are these great professors, very well educated from these prestigious institutions of education, who want us to become like a bit more civilized, more than just our simple religious horizons. Now I was listening to Jordan Peterson, who said like I have a message for Muslims. And he then said in his talk that don't hate Christians and don't hate Jews. Like he said nothing about the religious narrative which is playing from the leadership against these Muslims, like as you just pointed out. So the point is like even like these religious horizons, it's very difficult to go beyond it, even for these people, even for like for the people who wanted to do away with those religious things and become a bit more secular and a bit more modernized, they have sticked with that till now.
Well, I think the point in any event is that if there were human contacts, if people knew each other, if people traveled, if people worked together, if people played cricket together, uh,
Yes.
you know, these issues wouldn't loom so large. Uh, Most of the uh, hatred in Israel, for example, is by people who know nothing about Iran, have probably never met an Iranian, don't ever speak to Arabs. The hatred is just a blind in-group tribal hatred.
Yes.
And I think this is the biggest problem in the world is that the hatred is by ignorant people who don't know each other, don't have any idea. I see it in not just religious context, but in the United States, there's a big hatred against China by
Yes.
people who have never been to China, who know nothing about China, who know
Yes.
no history. But the hatred is absolutely there. It's partly racial, it's just prejudice, it's fear, it's ignorance. But that is enabled, that's possible to drive a lot of war.
Yeah, I just want to ask two simple questions more, sticking to the constraint of time. You have also said in one of your latest interview that the US is practically engaged in a war with China. So how this scenario, this conflict with Iran is actually or could be connected with the conflict with China?
The United States is trying to find ways to weaken China all over the world. And one of the ways is to play on China's oil dependence. China imports millions of barrels a day of oil, and the United States is trying to control the global flows of oil. uh, three ways at least. One, in the Western Hemisphere, uh, the U.S. invaded Venezuela, and it's trying to divert Venezuelan oil from Asia to the United States. Second, it has tried to impose sanctions on any country that buys Russian oil. And now, third, it's trying to control the flow of oil from the Middle East. Well, its success is that it has stopped all flows of oil from the Middle East. It's creating a global economic catastrophe
Yes.
as we speak. But the idea is they think that they'll get a compliant government in Iran, and then the United States will sit atop the world's energy supplies.
Yeah.
I
So
should be
last
more
question.
careful. The world's oil and gas supplies.
Yeah. So I want to ask this last question. You were once engaged in a debate with Professor John Mearsheimer, and the topic was deep state and power politics. Do you now feel realize that actually John Mearsheimer was right? States should focus more on their survival. They should focus more on building their security apparatus and these kind of things, like the values and the systems and laws we talked about, they could actually mean nothing when time comes.
Well, first of all, John and I are good friends, and he's a brilliant
Yes.
scholar, but I don't agree with him on the approach that the only thing we should do is fight the others because, well, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he regards conflict as likely, even inevitable among the great powers. So that I think is a fair summary. Uh, and he regards conflict as inevitable because he says great powers can't trust each other, and therefore they're worried about their survival. And that leads them to arms races and threats and open conflict often. So he calls this the tragedy of great power politics. And I disagree with that because in the nuclear age, I think this is going to get us all killed. And the war in Iran is such an example that could easily escalate. Maybe it already has started World War III.
Yeah.
And the difference, I believe, uh, with John is that I believe cooperation is possible if our mindset is different. I
Yeah.
don't believe we're fighting wars for U.S. survival. I think the wars that the U.S. is fighting are reducing our chances of survival. They're raising the chances of nuclear annihilation. So I don't believe that these wars are either inevitable or are really wars of survival. I think these are wars of choice driven by uh, ideology, narrow interests, and a lack of wisdom, a lack of judgment. And often, in the case of Trump and Netanyahu, driven by this combination of extremely violent deep states
Yes.
combined with the megalomaniacal leaders who are ready to plunge their nations into war. Think about, you know, Hitler in the end destroyed a lot of the world, but he destroyed his own country in the process.
Yes.
And other leaders like that led to rivers of blood. Napoleon, the same way. And these leaders, these megalomaniacs, are extremely dangerous because they're also psychopathic, I think, in the sense that they just turn off the uh, disasters that they create. Trump, even you could watch him these days when people talk about deaths, he shrugs it off. He's, so
Yes.
what? Pain, so what? Because this is a mindset right now. That's not just bravado or faking it or showing strong
Yes.
leadership. This is a particular mental state on display. It's very, very dangerous. It's not a rational calculation about survival needs. It is a state of belligerency that could get us all killed.
Yeah, so like I by myself was consuming too much in these days, Machiavelli and Chanakya, and I think I my mind was also changed. But when I was listening to you, I could feel that it's still like it does make sense to think from the standpoint of human values and to think like not just about cooperation, not just about competition, but also cooperation, and these things still make sense. You talked about context, so as you know, I like again I am from Pakistan, and Pakistan does not even recognize the state of Israel. But I once talked with a person who was from Israel, and I think I'm the first person in Pakistan with just this with this small platform who could talk with publicly with a person who is from Israel and who was a Jew. So
Yeah.
these, as you said, like these could be steps that we can personally take in order to develop better understanding and in order to know ourselves even more. So thank you.
There's something quite important to know, which is that most people everywhere are against these wars. These are wars driven by elite apparatuses, security agencies, militaries. They mobilize the public through hatred, through propaganda, through stereotypes. But these are wars driven from the top.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Professor. It really means a lot that I could have this conversation with you, and I hope that we will keep on talking with one another about these topics.
Wonderful.
So
Thank you.
thank
I
you so much,
appreciate
sir.
it. Thank you.